All right, so after World War II, we see a big change in the American military. So prior to World War II, we always utilized more of a draft and selective service to maintain our military personnel. But after World War II, we realized that because of the Cold War and the heightened hostilities and conflicts that are going to happen throughout the decades of the Cold War, that it is in our favor and best interest to maintain a large standing army, which will happen basically up until even now. So that is one major shift that happens. And so you have new careers and different types of occupations now that are in the military that start up after World War II. Now, as we move into Kennedy, take a look at his inaugural address, and we pull out two key quotes from there. The first one being pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any foe, support any friend, oppose any foe, in order to assure the survival and success of liberty. And so, what that quote is basically saying is that Kennedy is willing to do whatever it takes to protect democracy around the world. And if there are any circumstances that might put democracy in jeopardy, then we will have to, find our allies and go against whoever it is that we need to. Mainly, he's talking about the Soviet Union in this. Now, as he goes on to say, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. He puts the accountability and responsibility more on the American people. And so this is a way that he would, suggest that people join into the military and help support the cause of democracy. Now, even though Kennedy was a very beloved president, and he was liked for a lot of things that were kind of radical for the time period. So, one of those major things would have been his ideas on civil rights, which he's never really able to carry out, but later on will get carried out by Lyndon B. Johnson. Um, but he definitely, because of some of those ideas, attracted some people who were not big fans of him. And so you see in 1963 in Dallas, Texas, he is assassinated in his convertible during his parade there by a man named Lee Harvey Oswald. And despite all the the conspiracy theories and stuff, we're going to go with Lee Harvey Oswald as the person who assassinates John F. Kennedy. After this, you do see a big divide in politics and our ideas on what we should do with Vietnam. Those are all things that started up and are considered like why this would have happened. Now, before his assassination, one of his main initiatives, other than the civil rights and then also the war in Vietnam, is going to be the idea of the space initiative. So, the NASA space initiative is going to happen. And so basically, in the early 60s, we're looking at competing against the Soviets not only in trade and in military, but then also in space exploration. And so it becomes this competition to see who can get, who can do each benchmark faster. And so this is known as the space race. And so, they go back and forth who can put the first satellite into space, which is the Soviets, right? Who could put the first person into space, who could orbit the Earth first. So these are all things that Kennedy is going to say, hey, these are things we got to do right now. And he really puts a huge focus on this and promises the American people that we will get to the moon by the end of the decade. Now he's not able to see this out, but because of his initiative and where he starts that, the United States is able to have the first American orbit the Earth, and then eventually we are the first country to put a man on the moon, and that's going to be Neil Armstrong. And so you need to know this quote too for the SOL. That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. Saying like, hey man, I'm just a man, but what I'm doing here is so much bigger for all of mankind. Oh, and then that's it. And then you can go through here and on the slideshow go at your own pace here, but take a look at there's a lot of political cartoons. There's a lot of things like during the Cold War and a lot of elements that are put out there that you can look at and see. So we look here, and again, I'd like you to go through and do this on your own. But anyway, that's day one.